I'm turning 22 this year, and this happened to me when I was 6 years old. A little background story. When I was born, one of the first things that my grandma said to my mother was that there was something about me that distinguished me from the other family members. I didn't believe it at first, but when the incident happened, I did. Well, I just started to live in my actual homeland after my parents split for a while, and I used to go live with my older brother and mother in her native country for the first few years, but then they kinda got back together. So when I was back, I was very sad and angry because I had to leave all my friends. I couldn't speak a word, and I couldn't even properly understand my father, but this didn't affect our relationship because we were somehow really close. My mother still had her job in her native country, so she had to go work there for a few days to a few weeks at a time. Our house was divided into 2 apartments. My grandparents used to live on the ground floor, and we lived on the 2nd floor. The 2nd floor is connected to steel stairs, and right at the entrance is my bedroom that I shared with my older brother. My brother's bed is on the left side and has a big window at the end of his bed, right at the entrance. My bed is on the opposite side. The door is in the middle of us. Our room was pretty big, which makes this story even creepier. My grandparents unfortunately weren't alive anymore at the time. Now for the actual story. My mother had to go working, and we brought her to the train station. I was crying as usual and didn't want to get off her, but eventually I gave in, as usual. When we got back home, my father went on his Mac laptop and did some work. He really didn't care if I was watching TV for too long or ate all my favorite snacks. After watching hours of cartoons, it was time to go to sleep. I shared a room with my older brother, who's 3 years older than me. My father told us good night and we fell asleep. I woke up in the middle of the night, caused by a bright light. I looked over at my brother and he was awoken too. After a while, we saw a human-shaped shadow slowly climbing into our room. The thing was inside the walls, and it really was like a shadow on the wall without an actual person in front of it, and you could also see his feet. I was confused, but wasn't scared at first because I thought it might be our father playing a prank on us. You know, like the shadow play. The thing looked human, except his posture and head was formed bizarrely. He kind of walked crooked the whole time. When the shadow reached the floor, it suddenly got really cold inside our bedroom, and he slowly tiptoed to my brother. The scary thing about this creature is that it acted really clumsy during the whole time, like in a cartoon, even his tiptoeing. It was as if it tried to appeal us. Now I was suddenly really scared. Something told me that this thing is not human. My family has a history of paranormal encounters, but I thought this just happens to older people because my other grandparents who are still alive have so many stories. My brother stared at me with his eyes wide open and could see that he was as much scared as me. The shadow reached my brother and stood right to his head. We couldn't move or scream because we were so scared. He had no face, so he moved his head and whole body in a cartoonish way to show that he was looking at him from head to toe. Then suddenly, he looked up to me. Now this is why our room made the story much creepier. As I said, we slept each on the opposite side with a big space in between, so the walls are logically very long. The shadow man slowly went from my brother's side to mine, and we watched it while it got closer to me. Now it stood over me. Remember, this creature was inside the wall, and I thought that I was somehow safe while actively peeing in my pants. But suddenly, his arm was slowly reaching out to me, trying to get my head. I couldn't see anything because it was a black void blocking my view, and when I watched his face, there was literally nothing but coldness. As it almost reached my head, I started to scream, and my father jumped into our room. I started to cry, and we told him everything, and he told us that if something like this ever returns, I have to curse at it and scream like a maniac. After some time, my parents decided to live with us on the ground floor, and I had forgotten about it. From then on, there were no other incidents like this, but sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night with extreme chest pain, and I couldn't move, but would be looking at the full moon. I never mentioned this to anyone. My brother never talked about the incident because he doesn't believe in ghosts or evil spirits. But when I asked him 3 years ago about it, he told me that he remembers it but still doesn't want to believe it. So at least I didn't imagine it and it wasn't sleep paralysis, but this makes it even more horrific. After so many years, I still don't know what it was or why it did it. My father died not much long after the incident, and I'm left with more questions than answers. My hope is that I can find someone who had the same experience as me.